Hey guys, it's xBundok here, and today we're gonna go back to basics. I didn't. Back to basics. Is that good? That's better? All right. Back to basics with our miniature painting. So this is gonna be a little mini series where we go over some of the fundamentals that can help us with our miniature painting, such as just getting our miniatures ready, going over a little bit of color theory, and maybe some ideas on what's too much and too little color, basic brush maintenance, things that we think we know, we inherently do, but we actually don't think about all the time, and maybe we kind of let go by the wayside as we tried some of the more difficult things. So with our resident overlord here, we're gonna get started on today's episode. We're actually doing episodes now? Are we good enough for that? This week's episode? I don't know, time doesn't matter. Either way, let's get into getting ready for painting our miniatures. As you guys can see, I've got a few things in my workspace right now. A couple of personal projects, some gift projects, things like that. But we're just going to go over a couple of examples of different kinds of miniatures that some of you may be painting, just based off of who's actually commented on some videos before. And common things that I paint, just because I can speak from experience and help you guys out just a little bit more. So some frequent guests on this channel, I'll say, are a lot of the Pathfinder or D&D WizKids deep cuts prints, all right? Whether they be larger, smaller, monsters, PCs, things like that. Some of the older, some of the newer. Now, you see, they're relatively affordable, and with that affordability comes decent enough quality, I'll say. Now, both of these miniatures are advertised as primed and paint ready right out of the box. You can. I have. When I was first learning to paint, I didn't prime them or reprime them or anything like that, and I had no issues. Now, I definitely reprime them. Most of the time, I will say I go with the black prime just because if I miss something, it's an easy shadow. I don't have to worry about it. You may also want to do a zenithal prime, so go with that black and then the white highlighting, the dry brushing to give you some highlights. Or you can completely strip the primer off and reprime it. Either way, whatever you're thinking, one thing I do suggest is to clean your minis, give them a quick rinse, give them a quick wash, just because there's a little bit of extra what do you do's on them sometimes when you get them out of the box. You can also, I'll leave a link down in the description, or maybe in the video if I can figure out how to do that. Sometimes you'll run into seeing warped swords or things like that, skinnier pieces of the miniature that are a little less supported. You can always use a hot water bath too while you're cleaning up these minis and get everything rigid again. Now, we've also got our Warhammer here. Now, our Warhammer folks, I mean, I feel like sometimes you guys are a little bit of elitists, I won't take it out on you, but generally you guys know if you're working with Warhammer, you cut it off the sprue, clean it up while you're assembling. If you want to do a little kit bashing, make sure you got your green stuff to fill in any cracks and things like that, and then prime. Now, this is a new one out of my box. I'm doing this up for a family member. I'm really hoping they're gonna like it, but make sure you wash them first. So this is a little bit of an older set. At least I think it's an older set. I'm sure some other folks may date me on me saying that. But when you pull these out of the box, you can tell they're a bit more pliable, the kind of plastic and print they are. You want to wash them first because you can smell them. Don't lick them, just smell them. And if you smell them, they have a little bit of that petroleum smell, like they smell like plastic. And even they feel a bit soft and greasy. And you know, maybe that's just the set I got, but I always wash them and then I would cut them off the sprue, assemble, prime, and go from there. So that's how you can kind of get these guys ready. Now, if you're ready to go and get some custom printed miniatures, some fancy little resin prints off of Etsy or any other third-party support before you get your own 3D printer, because we all know that's just the next step down to the deep, deep descent of miniature painting, and you get a couple nice, wonderful resin prints, you might need to do more than just give them a wash. Sometimes you'll see, especially on chunkier portions or the bases, you might actually see the lining or the grain work from the print. but the rest of it looks really awesome. That's when you might want to get some of your green stuff and fill in some of the gaps, or maybe get a little file and trim it down. Be gentle, go slow. Don't be too forceful with it. You're gonna have a bad time and you're gonna snap it, and well, the artist will say, well, that was your fault. I didn't tell you to do that, you know? But a lot of times, don't take it out too hard on the artist. There's always a little bit of cleanup, and if they're handling a lot of things, like you see there's little nodules on the back there. They do their best, and you know, they're handling a large order. Just pick up one or two things. It's not too hard, right? But like I said, check them beforehand. And when you prime, I even suggest doing that spray on and then the brush primer even, because sometimes, especially with larger terrain type pieces, like maybe desks or walls or things like that, the lines are very obvious. You can fill them in if it doesn't add a texture that you like. If it has a good texture, just leave it, don't worry about it. But if it doesn't, you can do that spray on primer and then get your brush on primer and do your best just to kind of fill in the gaps. So go crosswise, go against the grain of that print, and you can kind of fill in those gaps a little bit more. If they're a bit too much, you might want to have a little bit of thin filler, similar to the green stuff or whatever your your modeling form of choice is, and you can fill those in. Now our primers. I have a few different ones here, but they all kind of follow or need the same thing I'm going to suggest. Read the instructions. Please just read the instructions. This is obviously model primer. Some folks go ahead and use, you know, regular spray can primer, things like that. If they work for you and you appreciate them, keep using them. I'm not at all saying you have to get miniature paint to paint your miniatures. I'm just talking about the basics. Read your instructions carefully. Make sure you're paying attention to what they suggest for their distancing, their temperature, when to use it, the humidity, because it can absolutely affect the outcome, just the initial outcome of your miniature. I've already gotten some figures where, okay, I was rushing it, I wanted to get a figure painted, and they look grainy. It's because the solvent and the settling of the primer essentially transferred onto the miniature, and you just kind of have to wipe it off because it's powdered. You gotta wipe it off and just do it all over again. Even with your airbrush primer, if you have an airbrush and you're using it inside, say if you live in the northeastern US like me and it gets a little chilly and it's a bit hard to do all of your priming outside year round with a spray can, this can come in handy. If you don't have an airbrush, just get you some brush on primer. It's always good to have a little bit, I say, of brush on primer. Again, follow the instructions, shake it well, make sure it's ready to go. Because if you do see that you miss a spot outside, obviously you want the same colors, you can just fill in your spot, right? You catch it before you get started, you fill in that spot, you let it dry, and you're all good to go. But bottom line, follow your primer's instructions. It's the easiest lesson I can teach today. Just read the can or the bottle. All right, guys, that's everything for this episode of Basics Back to Basics, Boondok's Back to Basics with Boondok, some sort of alliteration. Either way, that's it. That's all I got. We're going to be doing these in a short form version. I know that my wonderful 30 to 40 minute, sorry for the cattail, long form version videos aren't necessarily everybody's cup of tea. So we're just going to try and keep these, again, short, going over what we need to, kind of revisiting things that we think we know or we think about all the time, but maybe we will glance over just because we want to get something done, we want to get the project finished, or maybe we think, oh, well, I don't know, maybe we'll kind of go away from this at this point, or oh, but these are the colors that are on the box, let's do this, that'll look good, right? So we're just gonna, again, revisit the simple things, and this is as much for me as it is for you. So I'm going over what my basics are as an amateur tutorial, something that's relatively new to the industry. I mean, I haven't been sitting here painting for, you know, however many years. I'm not Ninjon over here. I don't have, you know, this great plethora of videos and repertoires and things that I've painted and who I'm selling to. I'm just someone getting into it that wants to help other folks getting into it. But if there's something I missed in this episode that you think is really helpful, of just, you know, you got a mini and you're getting it ready before you even get to the painting process, drop it in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to come back for more. Maybe in the future we'll visit some of the things on this shelf if I'm allowed to borrow the books, which probably not if I have snack fingers. You know, mochi doesn't really go good with the old school first and second edition pages, which I can respect that. As always, thank you guys for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.